Hi, I'm Andrew here at Fantasy A to give you my top 50 fantasy baseball outfielders for 2016. Of course, you knew who was going to be number 1 and 2, although some people would flip them. I've got Bryce Harper first because it's pretty hard to ignore what he did last year. 42 home runs, 99 RBIs, 124 walks. It was insane what he did last year. And then Mike Trout, he had another great season. But with Washington's better lineup and him not stealing as much, he's number 2 on my list. Another guy number 3 on my list is pretty standard. I got Stanton. I'm hoping to see a full season out of him this year. I would love to see those home run totals. I mean, he had 27 home runs in 74 games last year. He's just a beast. Number 4, some people might disagree with, but I think number 4 is A.J. Pollock over McCutchen. If you look at the stats, he just had a better season last year. McCutchen's not stealing as much. I mean, Pollock hit 20 home runs and 39 stolen bases with a .315 average. I think he's a McCutchen clone, basically, but with more speed. And then number 5, I've got Andrew McCutchen. His steals have fallen from 27 in 2013 all the way down to 11 last year. Now, of course, some of last year he was hurt, especially in the first half he didn't perform as well. But it's really questioning, I mean, is he a first rounder? He doesn't have elite power. He'll give you between 20, 27 home runs, between that range every year. He's really steady, and that's one of the arguments on why he is, that he's steady. He'll give you the stats every year, but he's not stealing anymore, and that was one of the biggest appeals, that you could get a guy with power and speed, and at this point, I think Pollock does it better. Number 6 is Jose Bautista. Great power. Average goes up and down depending on the year. It's really reliant on BABIP for that, but he's definitely one of the premier power hitters in the game. Number 7 is Starling Marte, who's a guy I keep finding more and more on my team when I'm doing a mock draft or something like that. I really like what he offers. I mean, last year he had 19 home runs, 30 stolen bases. I want him more plate discipline. I mean, 27 walks to 123 strikeouts. Definitely needs to improve on that. But other than that, he will give you power, he will give you speed, he will give you runs, and he hits in a good lineup. Number 8 is Mookie Betts. Really excited to see what Betts is going to do this year. He is super hyped in drafts. He's going in the second round, which is a little high for me, but even I will find myself taking him in the second round sometimes. Just he plays in a great lineup. He's going to hit for average, speed, and power. Another potential breakout this year. Number 9 is George Springer, who, again, is another one of those power-speed combos. I don't think the average is going to be 276. I think 250 sounds reasonable, but he walks enough, and I want to see what he can do with a full season. He could have a 25 season. As you see, he's 16 home runs, 16 stolen bases last season. JD Martinez, I don't think he'll hit the same amount of home runs this year, but he's going to hit over 270 with around 30 home runs this year, barring injury. Number 11 is Charlie Blackmon, who's another speed-power combo. A lot more speed here than power, but 17 home runs, 58 RBIs, 43 stolen bases. He hits in Coors Field. 12 is Cruz. He's on my bust list. His doubles have significantly fallen off, which I don't think spells good things for his power, which I think he had a career high fly ball home run rate, so that's something to watch. Number 13 is Justin Upton, and Upton's one of those guys that's more valuable in Roto. He's an extremely streaky hitter, but he always comes out with the stats at the end of the year. 26 home runs last season. He got back stealing with 19 stolen bases. I really like him in Detroit. And Cespedes, I think he can be overvalued a little bit based on the insane stats he put up with the Mets in limited time last year, but he's definitely another guy. 35 home runs last season. I think the average is going to fall a little bit, maybe 270-ish, but he's another good outfielder. Number 15 is Adam Jones, who some people seem to be really down on this year, and I don't understand why. He's not stealing anymore, but he'll still give you the home runs, he'll give you the RBIs. He plays in Camden Yards, so that's a good place to hit. He's falling where I think could be a really good value if you pick him up. And then number 16 is another guy that gets overlooked, Ryan Braun. He actually had a really good season when you look at the stats. He had 25 home runs and 24 stolen bases. He was a 2020 guy last year. And he's not hitting in as great a lineup this year. Chris Davis is gone. So is Sakura, although Sakura wasn't that great last year. But I don't see any reason why he can't replicate what he did last season. Number 17 is Lorenzo Cain. And the biggest question for him is, was the power last year real? Can he hit over 15 home runs in a season? Because he'll get the stolen bases in the average, so the power is just the icing on the cake. 18 is Gomez. I don't like Gomez. I've never liked his... if you see how he swings, like his helmet comes off regularly, he just lunges at that ball. And as he gets older, he's going to be 30 years old this season. The pass speed's going to slow down, and he's not going to make as much connections. He did have an injury last year, but I also think we're starting to see him decline a little bit. Number 19 is Hunter Pence. I had a hard time putting him over Carlos Gonzalez, but that's just how down I am on Gonzalez this season. Pence was injured last year, but when he's healthy, he gives you the stats. He'll get you over 20 home runs. 90 RBIs. He's just a steady, solid guy. Carlos Gonzalez last year, it looked like he was written off. Horrible first half. And then he goes and blasts 27 home runs in the second half. But his home away splits are very real. And the trade rumors around him makes me want to avoid him on draft day. Number 21 is Jason Heyward, who's going to be batting in a really good Cubs lineup. He could be hitting leadoff, which would score him a ton of runs. I don't think we're going to see the 20 home runs like people ever say every year. Oh, this is the year he's going to break out. But he's still a really solid guy. 23 stolen bases last year, a bunch of doubles, and in that lineup, it's great. 22 is Puig, who's also on my bust list. I find drafting him sometimes when he falls, but really, he hasn't lived up to the hype since he was first called up, and there's still those people that overvalue him, so I rarely ever find a spot where I feel like he's a good value when I draft. Number 23 is Michael Brantley, who's recovering from a shoulder injury, but because of that, you can get him at fantastic value in the draft. Of course, it's a concern anytime with the shoulders, but if he can come back and hit like he has in the past, you are getting one great steal there. 24 is Yelich, who will hit for around a 300 average, gives you some stolen bases. I really want to see the power develop. If the power would develop, he would shoot up in the rankings, and I like him as another breakout this season. Number 25 is Kole Calhoun, who gives you surprising power, and hitting him in front of Mike Trout definitely helps. He's a guy that gets undervalued, I feel, sometimes. He doesn't have great on-base percentage skills, so if your league counts that, it kind of counts against him, but he had 26 home runs last year. 26, Gregory Polanco did not break out last year. I mean, the steals were there, the power on the average wasn't. I don't find myself drafting him a lot, but obviously he has potential, and if he can reach it, he would be really good. And number 27 is Jacoby Ellsbury. Continued his decline last year, but he actually stole 21 bases, and if he can get back to hitting for a little bit more power, he's still a pretty good outfielder option. Now, number 28, if you watched my second sleeper video, you know how I feel about Piscotty. I am hyped for this guy. He is being drafted way too late, and literally I find myself with Piscotty on every team. He is a guy I target every time, and if you watch highlights from last year or how he's hitting in spring training this season, you will get how hyped I am about him. 300 average, 15 home runs, 80 RBIs. I think that's what I see this year for Piscotty. Number 29 is Matt Kemp. He actually had a decent year last year after being written off. 23 home runs, 100 RBIs. I don't think he'll reach the RBIs this year in that San Diego lineup. I still don't trust him to stay healthy, so he's a guy I tend to avoid a lot. Number 30 is Randall Grichuk, who actually gets drafted before Biscotti in almost every league I've seen. Even I have, just because I know if I don't grab Grichuk then, I know I can get Biscotti later. But he's got great power. I mean, look at that slugging percentage last year, 548. I mean, if he plays full time, which the Cardinals say he will this year, he could reach 30 home runs. Number 31 is Michael Conforto, who I see as another Biscotti-type player that's getting undervalued. I think he'll give you slightly less average with around the same amount of power. 32, David Peralta. He gets drafted a little high sometimes, but I mean, you can see why with the stats he put up last season. 312 average, 17 home runs, 78 RBIs. Doesn't have to worry about playing time with Inciarte gone. If he can replicate these numbers again, he will definitely be drafted higher next season. Number 33 is Corey Dickerson. His value obviously fell leaving Colorado for Tampa Bay, but it doesn't change the fact that he's still a good outfielder. I still see some good power numbers, good average, RBIs. He's a guy that gets forgotten just because he went to Tampa Bay, and he's not fantasy irrelevant now. He is very irrelevant. 34 is Adam Eaton. Finally showed the stolen bases last year and the power. 14 home runs, 18 stolen bases in 153 games. He hit for a good average, and he hits on top of lineups, so he'll score a ton of runs. Number 35 is Ben Revere. I feel like he gets drafted way too high. I don't end up with him because I don't like the value he goes at. He hits for good average, and he'll give you stolen bases and runs, and he hits in a great lineup, but as I state in the slide, is he better than Billy Burns? Like, is he? Burns hit 294 last year, 26 stolen bases, only 5 less than Revere, but that was in 27 less games. So, and he hit 70 runs to his 84, although Revere did play with the Phillies for some of the year, which is part of the reason, but I feel like I would rather wait for a guy like Burns than reach for Revere. 37 is Shin-Soo Choo, who actually had a good year last year. I mean, obviously he didn't steal any bases, but he had 22 home runs, 82 RBIs with good OBP, some doubles. He also gets a guy like, I think people feel like he's getting older and they kind of ignore him, but he's definitely a good guy to draft. 38 is Jock Peterson, and I mean, what he did last year terrifies me. Absolutely. I mean, post All-Star break, he hit 178 with 6 home runs, and that makes me really nervous for him on draft day. I still like him in dynasty leagues, especially if he starts showing those stolen bases, but I tend to shy away from him even though he's got that potential, because that second half was just that bad. It was so bad. Number 39 is Brett Gardner, another guy I tend to avoid. He also had a bad second half, hitting 206 with only 6 home runs. And he strikes out a lot. He will steal bases and give you some power, but his numbers have been declining the past couple years, and he's a guy I tend to avoid. Curtis Granderson, 26 home runs last year with 11 stolen bases, and if he hits on top of that really good Mets lineup now with Cespedes in there too, I think he could give you similar numbers with maybe a little more runs. He's definitely a good outfielder to fill out your outfielder slots, especially if you're in a 5 outfielder league. So he's a guy to look at. Number 41 is Dexter Fowler. Good season with the Mets last year, but I don't expect the home run total to be that high. He's going to score a ton of runs, obviously. Hopefully the stolen bases will be there. And he gets undervalued, I feel, sometimes, even though sometimes I feel like he goes too high. I haven't seen it too much. And then 42, I've actually seen Matt Holliday go undrafted in some 12-team leagues, which I kind of understand. I mean, obviously, he's not who he was. He's not going to be a power hitter, but he's still going to give you all the other stats. He won't give you stolen bases or home runs, but he'll give you runs, RBIs, OBP he's good at, good average, so he's definitely a guy that can, don't forget about him yet. Number 43 is Wil Myers, who is a post-type sleeper at this point. Still not played an entire season, but if he does, I think he can hit 20, 25 home runs and give you okay average, so he's definitely a guy to look at the end of the draft. Gerardo Parra, really interesting guy going to Colorado. I mean, he could hit 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, which would be really good, and he gives you a nice average. He's a guy that I definitely look for in drafts. Number 45 is Denard Span, who seems to be getting ignored this year. Maybe it was because he was injured last year, but he always gives you a 300 average. He's only 1 year removed from 31 steals. Great walk to strikeout ratio. And he's playing on the Giants. He's going to lead off. He's going to score a ton of runs. He's definitely a great in points leagues. 46 is Alex Gordon, who could provide you with a 15-10 season, but I'm not too high on him. I feel like he's a guy to avoid. 47 is Byron Buxton, who a lot of people love. I'm not buying into it. He was a top prospect, but I don't see him performing that great this year. Obviously, if he does in redraft leagues, you can get him at a great value, and he's an okay high upside pick at the end of the draft, but I don't see him performing great this year. 48 is Ender Inciarte, who had a pretty decent season with the D-backs last year, 303 average, 21 stolen bases. And the thing about this year is he will get consistent playing time in Atlanta, so that's a pretty good thing if only you need steals really late in the draft. And to round out my list, I've got Delino Deshields at 49, gives you cheap speed without hurting you in the other categories, and then 50, Billy Hamilton. Why is he being drafted so early? I mean, 57 stolen bases is great. Every other stat completely kills your team. 226 average, only 8 doubles. With his speed, only 8 doubles. 28 RBIs. I mean, 56 runs, and the lineup's going to be even worse for this year for the Reds. And he can't even... He's got a 289 slugging. A 289 slugging. He is one guy I will never draft. Alright, those are my top 50 outfielders for fantasy baseball this year. If you got any questions, you can leave them in the comments below or email me them at fantasyabe1@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.